Hello, my friends. I hope you had a fantastic week so far. This week, I'm back with Karen. Karen is a fellow videographer, photographer. We were talking about some of the new stuff in the industry, what we're seeing work to grow your business in 2023. So I'm going to stop talking and hand over to past me to introduce the interview, and I'll see you in just a moment's time.
Hi, my name's Karen Bengal. I'm a photographer of 30 plus years, and I also do video now as well. I'm based in Kent, but I work a lot on location anywhere, actually. I just load the car up and go. My background is really working for art dealers. That's how I kind of started in photography, working for art dealers. But now I do various corporate bits and pieces and commercial work too. And I love that my day is different every single day. That's what I love about my job. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for the time. And why don't we start there? Because I'm going to say, with semi-recently, it wasn't like, last week, but like within the last couple of years, have kind of transitioned from just a photographer to being now a videographer and a photographer, right? So what kind of made you, I guess, in some ways, want to transition between the skill sets? Because those who don't know, for the audience's sake, from a technical point of view, there's not much difference, right? As in, we have to use a camera in the same way. The settings on this camera as a video camera will be identical if it's taking still images or whether it's taking moving images. There is certain rules you need to apply, of course. But it's kind of similar in regards to skill set, right? So what made you want to kind of take that transition and that shift into video side of it more?
I suppose I was getting asked more and more by my current photography clients about video. Do you provide video? And the answer at the beginning was, well, no, because I haven't delved into it. But then I realized that it's a natural transition, I think, for photographers, really. And, ultimately, if you're not going to offer video, you're going to cut your nose off despite your face, really. You're going to start losing, quite a large chunk of your client base because they're going to go elsewhere. So I kind of had to learn it, if you like, but I also enjoyed learning it as well. And I'm going to kind of disagree with you. I found it quite a big learning curve for me to go from photography, which I've been doing years, and I can kind of do some bits and pieces with my eyes closed. I don't mean that to sort of sound big-headed or anything. But when I went into video, I found there was quite a lot to learn. There was quite a lot to get my head around. Okay, yes, obviously the camera's similar, the camera's the same, but then you've got the audio and the other bits and pieces. And also buying all the equipment as well, because I just went out and bought loads of bits and pieces and audio equipment. And I found it quite a big learning curve personally. But it was, as I say, natural progression from photography into video. And now, yeah, I really enjoy it. I love the creative process, and just like photography, actually, really.
It's a different skill set, I think, in some respects. I think, as I said in the intro, there is technical advantages for being a photographer or a videographer if you're going to switch or do both. Of course, you open up other elements such as audio, lighting, etc., that can be nuanced and can be more difficult when doing video, right? So instead of using flashes, you'll use consistent lighting and so on. But I guess that does open up the question then, because we've seen a rise in video. I mean, video in from a TV sense and a production sense and etc. hasn't really been, it's not new, right? This has been around for hundreds of years. This is how we've consumed information for a very long time. But I think the ability or the bottlenecks or the barriers to entry for someone to buy a professional camera like this themselves and or hire a professional potentially isn't tens of thousands of pounds like it used to be, when you only had the BBC, for example, in the UK. You literally had the BBC, maybe ITV, and then Channel 4 eventually. That was the broadcast. They were the broadcasting people. They were the people who did video, really. There wasn't internet video. That wasn't a thing until YouTube, right? Now, what YouTube introduced was a load of people doing it themselves. Holy shit. Which, by proxy, brought the price down of decent quality, decent grade, decent the ability to basically have, if you've got a decent webcam and a microphone, you can articulate yourself to the internet and potentially get famous. Ooh. Now, the caveat and the issue, which I've talked about at length, and I'm sure you have as well in your content, is not all content is made equal nowadays, right? We have, respectfully, people who are coming in and saying they're experts when they're clearly not, because they've just got a camera and and there's nothing wrong with that. Just don't claim what you're not, right? If you're claiming you're an expert, you need to have some level of credibility. And I was with a client last week, and it's not about saying you're the wholehearted expert in everything and you know everything there is to know and you are the pinnacle of the pinnacle. It's saying above average, you know more than the average, and or the person you're going to be working with, you know more than them. So in correspondence or in comparison to them, you are the expert, right? But how do you, I guess, in some ways come up with content, or how do you make sure that your content is going to be, as I say, on that better side of the spectrum when it comes to, because as we both agree, not all content's made equally, right?
Are you talking content for myself or content for clients?
In general, right? Creating content, because I think there's this massive wave of people who, it reminds me of the gold rush, right? In California, when everyone was like, oh my God, there's gold, oh my God, there's gold, oh my God, there's gold. And it's like, well, actually, the guys and the girls who made the most money were the ones selling the pickaxes, right? Not the ones going to find the gold, right? And that's kind of what I feel like about video in the last, especially through the pandemic and etc. Like, it was very kind of like, we saw this new age of like this lockdown video business that was great, fantastic, but they don't necessarily have the track record, they don't necessarily have the years, they don't necessarily have the experience that more traditional or, more established brands, personalities, etc. would have, that have been in the content game a lot longer. So I think it's a unique perspective, or something that should be discussed more, because the concept of creating something that looks and sounds good is something that someone can do on their phone with a bit of knowledge and a bit of Googling, right? For me personally, the difference and the reality which is going to allow you to stand as apart, whether this is what you do or in general for any business, is actually what comes out of your mouth, along with the production side. There's always going to be praise for production, sure, but that has to come second after how you articulate yourself, what you come across, and how you actually share what you're sharing, right? What's the value?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all very well having a video on your phone, and everyone's got them in the pockets, but if you haven't got the right idea of how to use your video, your message that you want to, get across on your audience who you're speaking to, it's kind of a pointless exercise if you're using it for your marketing, I would think. And of course, as I said, we've all got these phones in our pockets now. They all do video. The rise of TikTok back in the day and everything. It's changed the whole landscape. Absolutely. And lockdown, like you said as well, lockdown, everyone's at home just playing on their phones, creating these crazy videos, dancing and so forth. It just seems to have escalated the whole kind of media now. Yes, everyone is doing it. Everyone is a expert. But I think essentially if you're not creating the right message, you're not speaking to your audience and, marketing your message properly, that's kind of a waste of your marketing. If you're using it for marketing, it depends how you're using your content. But if you are using your content for marketing, if you're not kind of ticking the boxes of how you should be doing it for your audience, then it's kind of a wasted exercise, I would have thought.
Yeah, and I think I think that's a really important element, but something that we briefly discussed before the show as well. It kind of put your money where your mouth is, to an extent. Like, if you're saying that content is good for your business and putting yourself out there is good and etc. And I know it's something that we both create, so it's not necessarily, it's something I think we can both discuss at length, because we both create a lot of content. But how does someone really tune what they're going to discuss, and how do they perceivably? Because we've discussed as well, one of the main hurdles that most people have when it comes to creating content, right? We talked about it being a successful business owner has this as part of their marketing strategy. Of course they do, right? Them talking to a internet platform of some description with an audience, right? And building that and trying to cultivate that conversation to then build trust quickly, so then that potentially we can have a commercial conversation about how I could help you, or etc., right? In general. But how does someone initially start, outside of just do it, right? Which is the really catch-all, just do video, just do it. And there is an element of just do it. But how does someone like actually get to the point? Because it's very easy for us to sit here as content creators and say, well, you know, I've been on video for 10 years, so of course I can just start a video and start talking to it because it's in my comfort zone, right? But it was never, it wasn't always in my comfort zone, right? So how did you, I guess in some ways the question comes there is, how did you get this content creation as a whole, articulation publicly, to be part of your
Yeah,
company?
it's not. Look, I'm not going to kid you by saying it's easy. It's not, and fear and confidence is the big one that I hear a lot, along with tech and ideas and time. But confidence is a massive one, certainly for women, I think, as well. Getting in front of the camera, fear of judgment, fear no one's going to like what they say. It's huge. It is really massive, and it's all very well for us to sit here and say, get in front of camera, you know, you've got to get yourself out there, you got to do it. You know, I get it. Fear, massive. It took me a long time to do it. And I would just record, as I say to other people, actually, just try recording on your phone. You don't need all the fancy equipment to start with. Just try recording on your phone, and don't post them anywhere. Just do one every day, and just you know, look, you know, get used to seeing yourself on camera, get used to hearing how you sound, and just delete it. You know, you don't have to post it anywhere. Just delete it. Just get used to it, and you practice. I know it's easy to say, but it's so true. As with anything in life, just keep practicing, and it becomes the normal. There are other little tricks, and I'm sure you know, Carlton, of how to kind of help the confidence side of things. You know, film somewhere nice and quiet, avoid all distractions, put the husband out, put the kids out, you know, make sure you're on your own, and just feel comfortable. Put a picture of someone that you know well by the mic, by the camera. Imagine you're talking to them. The little tricks and things you can do, but essentially, you kind of have to remember that the content that you're putting out, it's not about you. Essentially, it's about your audience, and it's about you helping your audience or your client. So you have to kind of remember that as well. A lot of it is mindset, but yeah, our confidence is a huge one. Absolutely.
I think the main thing that has helped me when it comes to like public speaking, which is the same thing, or workshops, or podcasts, or having a show, having content, and being consistent, whatever, is around understanding that you're the catalyst to the information, and actually like you ahhing, etc., can be a thing you get better at, and things that you end up, you know, I've found the more content I deliver, the more choosy I am when I articulate a point, whether this is professionally or personally, however I articulate myself, right? The ability to share my view, whatever that view may be, ends up being more respectful, better articulation, and in some ways more intelligently thought, because I've had more practice at building a narrative, building a story, building a conversational point, right? To say, hey, by the way, have you thought about doing this, right? And that's actually the benefit, I would say, excluding what you get from the content and like actually using it as content, and except all the benefits of why we actually do video, right? It's a lead gen ad, and it puts you out there, and it gets you to build trust quickly, and all these things. Remove all of that for a second, because if you don't post it, you don't gain any of that. But the ability of practicing to do it with the goal of actually looking to post it, and the ability to stare into a camera like I am right now and deliver with confidence and conviction, is that level of articulation, that ability to be able to take a pause, to be able to have confidence in what you come across. And the knock-on effect we've noticed with clients, but also myself, and I'm sure you've had it as well, is when you talk about what you do, you talk about it with so much conviction and so much confidence. It's a very different energy when it comes to sales. It's a very different energy when it comes to teaching. It's a very different energy, because you know you have this, especially if you're posting, you've got literally thousands and thousands and thousands of videos proving your point.
And I think if you're passionate as well about the subject, you know, if you're selling a product or a service that you provide, and you're passionate about it and you really believe in it, I think it makes it easier too, you know, to have that conviction and that confidence come across quite well in the video. So as I said at the beginning, I think a lot of it is mindset, it's belief, and I can assure you that you'll only see the benefits from doing it. And you know, no one's looking at you if you got your hair out of place. They're really not. So
I think if you do, like, sometimes we deliberately don't cut out meat marring, making mistakes, etc., because I think it
I agree.
humanizes you, right? As well. Like, I think sometimes on social, and something that I've tried to do a lot this year is share the non-highlight reel parts of my life, right? Because traditionally social media is, right, this is the amazing event I was at.
Yeah.
This is the really cool thing I was doing. Look, we did this really cool filming thing. Look, we did this. Look, this is shiny. Look, 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 look. Highlight, 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 highlight. What isn't discussed, what isn't showcased is I didn't want to wake up today and I had to go and do an event anyway, and I had to push myself through mentally, and so on and so on and so on, right? For the sake of the audience, at the time of recording yesterday, that was my reality. Okay, fine. But the reality of the fact is that I still did it because that's what that's what I should do, right? The ability to be able to push forward allowed me to create that piece of content still, right? I had a job to do. I didn't have a choice, right? Now, I won't get into this too much, but this does open up a kind of question around like how we should go about creating content as a whole as well, because I think sometimes when we push, let's say, right, someone's like, okay, cool, I'm going to put myself in content, sure. But should you still create content when you're not feeling it? Because that's surely, like, for me, that's a personal line that you have to choose yourself, right? I used a really quick example. I had a conversation a couple of months ago with a coaching client, and he said to me, I don't want to talk about my children. I want to talk about my family and content. I said, okay, well, who has control of your mouth? There was silence in the call for a second, right? And I said, no, seriously, who has control over your mouth? And he said, well, me. So I said, if you don't want the knowledge of your family, your children, the fact you have children, what your children have done, where your etc., all of this, don't say it. Don't articulate it. Don't talk about it, right? I think there should be, and personally for me, this might change in the future. Personally for me, personal life is your personal life. Your professional life, if you choose to be a public figure and someone who does video marketing, video, and has that level of that level of I'm going to show you inside my life, that's fine. But that's a decision you need to make firstly, number one, with all the benefits that come with it. There's also caveats, right, as well. But also I draw the line at saying I've got some stuff for me that's just in my personal life that I will deliberately keep personal and private because it's my personal life. And when you're me and 95% of my life is recorded, literally recorded, right? Yes, I need and want something that's just that 5%, right? And that's why I think it's really important. And that's why I mentioned, like, I did think for a long time about should I, like, be openly vulnerable with my audiences? Because that's a step that not a lot necessarily take. But what I've actually noticed is people have a lot more respect for me because they gain the context around Colton's just not in this highlight reel all the time. Right? Actually, no, Colton is human too. No, Colton actually has his mental health days. No, Colton actually has mental health. No, Colton actually can feel shit. No, actually, Colton can have, things that he has to overcome and challenges he has to come. And just for the record, half of them I don't even discuss because it's just the day-to-day for me. But the point is to actually say, look, if you're going to look up to me as a role model, you're going to look up to me as a successful business owner, surely I should also be sharing the shit too. Because surely that's our responsibility as content creators or people who articulate, right? To also say, by the way, this is really hard.
Yeah, I think absolutely true. Look, the first step is getting yourself in front of camera. Okay, so you're kind of hidden away by not doing that. So that's kind of the first step. People then start to get to know you. Obviously, the know, like, trust thing. And they get to see you. Oh, that's what she sounds like. That's how she sounds. That's how she talks. And then you're right. When do you start to introduce the more personal bits and pieces? I think it does, just also going back to what you just said earlier about the ums and the ahs. I think having a bit of vulnerability, it does make you more authentic. People can kind of, tend to relate to you more so than just a very straight brand or a logo. So by getting in front of camera and showing that side of you, I think it's a really good idea. I mean, some people they massively overshare, to be honest, I think. But I think there is a balance between, letting people into your kind of your personality, your vulnerabilities, I think personally it is important to do, to create that connection with your audience, your clients. Um, I mean, last week I was trying to record a video that I had to do, and I've been putting it off for weeks and weeks and weeks. Just going back to what you said about some days you just don't feel it. It just wasn't working. I just having one of those days. It was not working, and it was only had to be about 3 minutes long. And I'd bullet pointed everything out, but it just was not coming out. So I just down tools. There's no point in pushing yourself to try and do something when you're just not feeling it. I still haven't got around to doing it actually, but I thought I'll do it tomorrow. I'll come back tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. Don't beat yourself up about it. If you're having a bad day, there's always tomorrow. You know.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention the context around those, right? Is it a thing you can come back to and you can reshoot if needed, right? If it's a video you're doing for yourself or it's a talking to camera piece, you can do that anytime. If it's an event that only happens once,
Kind of
maybe
stuck,
not so
aren't you?
much, right? It's kind of like, right, so you got a choice. Either you're going to create the piece of content or you're not going to create the piece of content. That's the
But
only
that's like
option,
that's
right?
like any
And for
job.
me,
That's like any job. You're having a bad day, you still have to go out and do your job, don't you?
and that's why I think the nuance and I guess in some ways the caveat around that is different. But for me, I guess it opens up another question, which is because for me, like one of my unique selling propositions is those other elements in the brand. Is me willing to be, for the sake of education and for the sake of actually hopefully educating other men, other successful business owners or people who want to be. This is the reality of running a business, right? As a way for me to stand out, right? But how does someone, because we're talking in a sea, as I alluded to earlier, a sea of people who all want to do this, right? Content creation, they want to do the working on the internet job, etc., right? Which the illusion of which is you work barely at all and you basically just go to content all the time. That's actually probably what you see the most of, but actually the things we spend the most time doing is everything else, right? The actual reality is, but just to reiterate the question, how would you recommend someone comes up with the things that are going to allow them to stand out in a market sea of the same videographers or the same photographers or the same creative people?
Yeah, good question. That's the $1 million question. I think if we all had the answer to that, then we'd all be winning. I think ultimately, you've got to be yourself. You've got people. You and I could be doing the same job. Some are going to relate to you more because you're just you, and some are going to relate to me more. I think a lot of it is down to the creator and how you come across, your style, your type of content. As I say, in a sea of so many creators, there are a lot of similarities between all of us, but we've all got our own authenticity. We're all doing it our way. There's people out there that are doing video creation, jumping around, loads of animations and graphics. That's just not me. I do it differently. Some people are going to relate to them and some are going to relate to me. I think you just have to be authentic. You just have to be yourself and create the content that sits well with you and your personality and that your audience can relate to.
No, I really agree with that, and I think it's something which so many people, when they start creating, they don't. And this is the reason why I have so many videographer friends and so many photographer friends, because I'm fully aware that a job which comes in that we may both bid for, the client's going to choose the best fit, right? That might be budgetarial, that might be creative decision, that might be approach, there might be 1,000 different reasons. And it comes back to your mindset, right? For me personally, it's around, okay, do I have an abundance mindset to understand there is plenty of work no matter the state of the economy, and actually I just need to keep articulating what I'm articulating in a consistent fashion to attract the correct clients for me, right? And I think for me, that's the most important element, because I think sometimes we can get into that kind of this person's doing really well, this person just worked with this person's just signed this retainer, or they've done this or they've done that, or they worked with this really cool brand, or they shot a beautiful interview, and oh my god, or maybe the other way around, right, where they've won the job but they haven't necessarily done it the way you were doing it, and then you're sat there going, oh, why is the client choose them, because we could have done a better job, etc. It's like, why are you giving that energy, why are you inviting that energy into your reality? Because with inviting that energy, all it's going to be is a negative feedback loop for you. Instead of saying, well done, I was having a conversation with my barber this morning about this, if I lose a job to a competitor right? I'll go up and shake his or her hand and say, well done, fair play. Like, if we both bid for it and the client goes with someone else who isn't either of us or them or me, I hope that the response would be, fantastic, clients won. They've got the person they chose. They've got the person that's best fit for them. It's not saying that you aren't worthy and you're not good at what you do and etc. It's you weren't the right fit either budgetarily, creatively, approach, etc. for your approach, right, in that project case or for that client. That's cool. All the love in the world to you. But I think that comes from a level of abundance. That comes from a level of confidence to know that client isn't the be all and end all, right? Like, it doesn't mean that just because you don't win that job. I mean, I guess there's two questions here. There's a two-pronged question. Number one, do you share that mindset? I believe you do, because we're having a conversation as competitors. I don't believe we are. And if you do, how did you develop that mindset, right? Because that's not something that necessarily I think we start with, especially, but also we don't by proxy, because of who we are and like the fact we are very self-contained in the respect to, I need to make sure I have a living and I need to make sure I make a living and I need to make sure I'm fine, right? But for me, actually, if you just give good karma out into your communities and out into your world, I believe that the karma related reality will look after you eventually.
I agree. I think, yeah, I know, I agree. I think, look, healthy competition is good for all of us. We all need it, really, at the end of the day, so you can just up your game a bit more. I think I'm probably like yourself, Carlton. I'm fortunate enough to have been doing this quite a long time now, and I'm in a position where if the job doesn't come off and it doesn't feel a fit, a good fit, I'll just move on. And that's fine. I'll let it go to the competitor or the other guy, the other girl. If it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be, and I'll we'll wait for the next one, or the next one will come along. Definitely, I agree about the positive energy thing as well. The more negative you are, the more ruthless you are in business. I think it's only going to come back and bite you as well. So yeah, I think
it's how do you I agree with everything there, and I mean, just to add in quickly, I think it's about being accountable to your own actions, and I don't think it's about necessarily pointing a finger at this is the competitor did this differently. I think it's saying, okay, so why didn't I win this job? Was it because the client wasn't the right fit? Okay, cool. Or was it actually, and something that I've had for a long time is actually, yeah, we are not the right fit for them, right? Actually, is that client the right fit for me? Not the other way around, right? Because I think sometimes we have this, I guess in some ways, scarcity around, saying no to clients. I've turned down jobs because the person's wrong, the budget's wrong,
Definitely.
so on, right? But also, with that being said, it's also about understanding where is your financial position, where is your reality, right? I'll take on jobs because it's like, hey, this is good for the brand. Yeah, the budget isn't really what I want it to be, fine. Or I'm in a financial reality where I need to generate cash flow. Okay, fantastic, Colin. We're eating shit for 3 months now because of the reality we find ourselves. That's different, and I think the value to be added there is, I guess the question would become, what would you say to video people, photo people, anyone that is looking at the economy and going, this is a fun reality. What do you do, right? Like what is your, I guess in some ways, what is your gut feeling of like, right, okay, this is go time. I need to act in some way to move things forward. What do you do? What's your port of call? What's your kind of thought process? Because look, the reality is, whether we like it or not, the economy is in a very interesting place, and it's going to be in a very interesting place for the foreseeable future. So it's very possible there's people who aren't in business right now, who maybe are in business right now, that are going to have to take these decisions and going to have to potentially take this quote unquote plan or these ideas and actually action them quite quickly soon, because we're not in floaty money out of the world, there's lots of money falling from the sky land.
No, and it's I mean, let's be honest, we're in quite a competitive market as well. We couldn't have picked much more of a competitive industry to work in. You know, everyone's a photographer, everyone's a videographer. It is tough. Look, you know, I'm not gonna lie and say it isn't. You know, I get quiet weeks, I get busy weeks. It's, you know, it is the way it is. But like you say, we've got to get through this. And how do we do it? You know, there's little bits and pieces you can probably think about within your business. You know, go through your inbox, look at past inquiries, maybe tap some old contacts up that maybe you haven't spoken to for a while. Just kind of we're back to that, getting in front of people again, getting visible. You know, tap them up, drop them an email, just create that connection again, remind them, hello, I'm here, kind of thing. I guess it is all about being visible, isn't it? It's all about just keeping top of mind so that when they are ready to market, and let's be honest, if we're going through tough times at the moment, you should still be marketing. It's not necessarily the one thing that companies should pull back on. And that's kind of where people like you and I come in, to keep visible in front of them, to keep, you know, to remind them you're there. As I say, go through your inbox, look at old past inquiries that where clients have inquired about jobs, go through them again, get in touch with them again, get out, get networking. It is just visibility, I think. That's one of the most important things, because it just reminds people you're there, and the services that they might not have been ready at that time. They might not have been ready to take your services at that point, but now they might be in a situation where they are. So yeah, it's just getting out there, really.
I think there's a couple of points I'll add there, which is like, you know, I alluded to the fact, and you alluded as well, that it's a heavily competitive market in this industry. But let's be honest, any market or any service or product that you can make money in is going to be competitive.
Yeah, but everyone,
especially
but
okay,
everyone's got a
money,
camera
right?
these days, haven't they? Let's be honest. Everyone's on. I mean,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
But to an extent, this is the point I was making, which is like, you shouldn't necessarily be cutthroat just because
no.
it's competitive, right? You can be nice, you can stay in your lane, and you can actually appreciate other people's work and say, actually, that's really cool. That's done really well. That's shot really well. That's shot beautifully. Wow, that shot was incredible. Like, it's things like that. You don't have to be this kind of like bitter, kind of
I can do it
horrible,
better. I can do it
fucking,
cheaper. Yeah.
you know, oh fuck you, oh you took my work.
No.
It doesn't have to be like that, right? I personally think there's two ways, right? Either you can go around the approach of like supporting others, and you'll probably get referrals through those other people. Like, the amount of work I get given through other video agencies is ridiculous, right? Just because of the people I've built relationships with in my industry. But also, they might inspire you to do something differently. But also, let's just be really honest here. The ones that are successful are the ones that outwork the competition. That's the reality. If you've got a phone, or if you've got a microphone, and you're posting more content that's valuable to the market in comparison to someone else, you will win. That's the reality, right? Now, it's very simple, and it becomes easier when you have professional equipment, you're a professional editor, you know what you're doing, because it's a time efficiency thing, right? The reason why production will always be a thing is because it's designed and streamlined to create content at a higher quality, at a higher pace than you can on your phone. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use your phone. That means understand the tool that you need to do the job with, right? If you're there to create a quick on-set video talking about what you're doing, can you use that on a professional camera? Absolutely. But are you planning to post-produce that so that you release it after the fact? Or are you trying to get it out while you're on set? Right? Okay. So then this is where like the tool you're using comes in. But I think it's also, again, it comes back to your mindset, right? Because for me, I don't spend a lot of my energy and a lot of my time looking at what my competitors are doing. I could not tell you what 95% of my competitors are doing, because unless I open LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram to one of their posts when I'm posting one of mine, which is the only reason why I go on these platforms in most cases, unless I'm there to interact and like actually consume a little bit to build that community, I have no idea, respectfully, what you're doing, because I'm so busy doing it myself. You know what I mean? Like, and this is what I said to a client the other day. I don't have spare time ever, because whenever I don't have client work on, I'm creating content that then helps me gain more client work and build the brand and create advertising and so on. It creates me to be more visible in other areas, right? Or I'm creating content that I can then sit on a bank of content, so when I am busy, my marketing doesn't have to stop, right? Because traditionally, that's what happens. You put out a load of marketing, it works, you get some work in, and then your marketing stops for a bit because you're there serving the client, which is important, sure. But actually, if you were thinking really strategically, you would prep a shit ton of content that's already valuable and all there and etc. And then when you're busy with clients, you still have stuff to post. Yes, you don't have the time to create it right now because you're working for clients, perhaps, but you can still post because you've just prepped a load of this content, right? And I think if you don't look long term, and I think one of the issues that we saw in the pandemic was people were going, "Oh my god, this is scary. Let's retract our marketing budget. Let's really internalize it. Let's not spend any money because," and it comes from that scarcity thing of let's not spend anything in case it doesn't come around. But the thing is, when you understand economics in general, money has to flow for it to flow back to you. So if you're sat there not spending any money, yeah, you might have some money in the bank. I'm not saying don't put money aside. What I'm saying is don't just stop spending money, because then you stop being visible, then you stop, because then how does your clients, how does your customers know that you still are even in business?
Exactly.
Right? Because it's, we're watching, I'm sure you've seen it in Kent, but we've seen it business after business after business, unfortunately, gone under, had to part ways, got a job. No disrespect meant to these business owners. That is the reality of the world right now. But how the hell does your clients know? How the hell does your customers know that might be willing and might want to work with you because you're the perfect fit for them? If you're not articulating that, hey, by the way, we're still around. Hey, by the way, I've done this. Hey, look, this is really cool. Hey, have you tried this? Hey, look, AI, you can use this with AI. Hey, look, have you thought about doing this? Hey, have you thought about doing this? Etc. If you're not doing that, how the hell how do I know?
Exactly that. You've just hit the nail on the head. I remember when I first went self-employed and someone said to me, don't just sit at home waiting for the phone to ring. You know, no one knows you exist unless you shout about it. And it's so true. And you have to remind yourself, even today, you know, your perfect client might be out there, but unless they know you exist, they're not going to hire you. So, you know, it's so important to just keep shouting about your services and, you know, I'm here, this is what I do. The phone's just not going to ring. And also just going back to what you said earlier, about the customer, you know, looking after the customer, that's so huge. The amount of people I hear from that, you know, they'll send you an email or they'll call you and I get back to them straight away. As soon as I can, I'm back to them. And they'll say, you know, it might be like 6 hours or something, I'm on a shoot and I can't do it there and then, but they'll say, oh, thanks for getting back to me, or thanks for getting back to me so quickly. And I'm like, this is standard, isn't it? This is what we do. Clearly not. There's so many people. No, so many people just don't do that. And it's so important to give the customer a great experience, a great journey, you know, remove the roadblocks, the speed bumps kind of thing. Just give them a nice, smooth journey and they will come back to you.
It reminds me of a conversation I had with another videographer. He's a very good friend of mine. I won't mention him by name for obvious reasons, but he was talking about like he was frustrated by the fact he didn't win a job. And I said, well, okay, let's break down how this job came about, right? So he got back to them on a Monday morning and the email came in on Friday evening, right? Now he had to travel for a shoot and which is very normal, right? And what I said to him was, okay, could you have answered the email when you got back? Yes. Yes, he could have done. Okay, cool. Right. Would that have created a good impression for the client to receive it? And they can see when you sent it because everything is digitized and everything. We know when everything is digitized, right? It was sent on Friday instead of Monday, right? Could that be like people aren't expecting instant 5 seconds response? If you give a 5-minute response, fantastic. That means you were in your emails when the email came in. That's what that means, right? Not... But it should be my rule, and the rule I always suggest is like within 24 hours, no matter whether it's the weekend or, again, this is a boundaries thing and a visions thing, but like excluding the weekend in some cases. But like if you're in traditional working hours, 24 hours, right, is a good yardstick. But the point I was making was like whether this client was a good or a bad fit for you doesn't matter. You're not going to know that unless you are saying, hey, thank you so much for your email and your inquiry. Hey, I need this from you so we can move things forward. Now, if they choose not to come back to you or they're lackluster or etc., that's up to them. But again, this is sometimes what people get wrong in their mindset. It's a to and a fro part of the negotiation process is actually checking, in the same way you would do with dating, in the same way you would do with any relationship building, is, hey, are you going to be a good choice for me to invest my time, energy, and resources into? Period. Yeah. Right? Same is true in everything, right? Friendship, relationship, financial transaction, working with someone or for someone, etc. Right? And actually, as I said, it's that mindset around, are you as the client a good fit for me, not the other way around? Because sometimes I've said to clients, I'm like, look, you've got lots of money, it's lovely, I'm sure it's wonderful, but we just don't, it just doesn't, it's just not going to work. It's going to be paying my ass, it's going to be a blow of time. It's just, you're not the right client for me. That's cool, all the love in the world to you, peace. But I only know that because I went out of my way quickly to establish what do they want, how much of the money have they got. And some of the time I'll just give a rough ideas on quotes. If I can do it, I'll say a project like that, we did one 2 weeks ago, 3 months ago, whatever, and it cost between X and Y. And that, what I'm doing is I'm pre-vetting exactly. Before a call, because as I'm sure you have, I have, etc. We don't have unlimited time. So if I'm going to be on a call with you, respectfully, there needs to be a reason behind it. Either we're creating content, either it's for a sale, either we're getting to meet, we're increasing that reality when we're going to build a good relationship together, etc. But the caveat is very simple. We can have a very long, amazing conversation about the creative, but if you can't afford the creative, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. Stop wasting everyone's time. Let's have the conversation at the start and just make sure we're both on the same page. Yeah, you're so right. It works both ways as well. It's got to work for the client and it's got to work for you, definitely.
But I think so many people are very scared to say no, right? Because, as I say, it comes with that scarcity concept of, what if I don't get another job? Well, actually, when you take control and take a full accountability to how hard you're working and what you're outputting, then you can take full accountability to, do you have work or not? Because if I know, I said to myself I would follow up on those 2 people, or I said to myself I would reach out to those 3 clients, as you alluded to earlier, that I haven't spoken to in 2 years or 6 months or whatever it's been, and then you don't, whose fault is it? And a habit that I've built is, don't set reminders if the action can take less than five minutes. Do the action. Don't, I'm going to set a reminder on my calendar to send that email. No, just send the email. Because in the time you could open your calendar and write the reminder, you could have written the email. Right? Now, if it's a task that's going to take longer, like a shoot or a prep or a document or a proposal or planning this podcast or whatever, then yes, fine. Add it into your calendar for a later date if you can't do it now. But that's not the same to say, I need to send a check-in email to Sally because Sally said we would do this thing and it's 2 months has passed and this thing hasn't happened yet. Right? Okay, cool. Let's see where we are with Sally. Or, I tell you what, I'll give Sally a quick ring, right? Because people are busy. They're not always going to sit there, look at their emails or even get around to necessarily their emails some of the time, unfortunately. Again, kind of, is that a red flag? Is that kind of the client you want? Okay, but let's say you do. Let's give Sally a ring then. Hey Sally, how are you? Just wanted to check in. We had a conversation back in May about Is that still something you're open to? Is that so? I mean, I had this example yesterday. I ran into a potential client on the shoot yesterday, right? Had a very quick conversation with her. I was like, hey, how are you? All good. Really appreciate the support. She noticed me and my work because of how prompt we are on Instagram. Again, be visible, right? And I said, hey, look, I've got to go now because I'm here on a job, but if you want to have that conversation about those videos I know we discussed, let's have a conversation next week and we can see what we can do for you. It's just about reminding people that about pre-conversations and saying, hey, look, I still remember you. And that actually goes really a lot further than I think people necessarily appreciate. Because I think sometimes we, especially in business, we don't necessarily we want to beat around the bush kind of to an extent, right? But for me, there's kind of 2 breeds of businesses. Ones that are willing to not beat around the bush and just get straight to the point. Like anyone who knows me will know very simply, we can have small talk, but I'm going to try and push small talk out of the window very quickly because it's a waste of both of our time, right? I'm sure your kids are fine. I'm sure you're amazing. And I'm sure the weather and the holiday was wonderful. Fantastic. Right. Can we now discuss what we're here to discuss? Thank you very much. The point is the efficiency of time, right? Because anyone who's super busy and trying to do lots of things, and especially running multiple businesses and actually scale, and this isn't like, I've got so much client work, look at me. It's no, if I don't hit all of these metrics today, I'm in trouble tomorrow, right? Because I've said to myself, I'm going to do a weekly podcast show. I'm going to have these pieces of content go out. I'm going to say I'm going to be daily. I'm going to be multiple times, whatever, because that's the being accountable to yourself element. And that's what I think's missing in a lot of the market right now. And that's for those who are listening who are looking for a content creator or someone to work with, look at what they're doing for themselves. Because that will give you a very good understanding of how they work, their work ethic, and also what they're capable of doing when they don't have a client's deadline or an invoice attached
and
to
I
it
think,
necessarily.
Yeah, you're right. And look at what's working and what's not. You know, see what's working, and see what the trends are, see what's working, see what's not, and you know, get yourself inspired from that and take valuable lessons from what's out there and what people are doing.
For those who want to continue this conversation outside of this show, they want to connect with you, they want to see some of your work, they want to hear about some more of your videos, where's
you can find me on LinkedIn, Karen Bengal Photography, and you can also find me on Instagram, again, Karen Bengal Photography. There's only one Karen Bengal, so you shouldn't have any trouble finding me on most platforms.
Fantastic. And someone who has maybe taken inspiration from this episode and is like, tell you what, I'm going to do some videos, going to use my phone, going to smash it, going to create content, going to do that first articulation out to the market about what I do. What one piece of advice would you give them?
Okay, my favorite saying is, and this rings so true, if you keep doing the same things, you're going to keep getting the same results. So if you want to make the changes, you've got to make the change.
Albert Einstein, the definition of insanity. Those who
there you
don't
go.
know. Thanks so much for coming back, ladies and gents. I hope you took value from mine and Karen's conversation. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode of the podcast where I'm interviewing another exciting guest on how we can help your mindset and your business grow in 2023 through the power of video marketing. So if you'd like to hear how video can help your business in 2023, feel free to find my information somewhere around this video, and I will see you